The International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for two high-ranking Russian military officers for attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby says the U.S. has carried out another humanitarian airdrop over the northern Gaza Strip. The International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for two high-ranking Russian military officers. They are wanted for the war crime of directing attacks at civilian objects and causing excessive incidental harm to civilians. It's the second time the International Court has issued warrants linked to Russia's war in Ukraine. In March 2023, the court asked for the arrest of Russian President Vladimir Putin, accusing him of being responsible for the abductions of children from Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed the decision and thanked the International Criminal Court on Tuesday. French President Emmanuel Macron reiterated his support toward Ukraine at a press conference in Prague. Macron also said it is important to secure ammunition for Ukraine from countries outside the EU. A family of 5 who died in a Russian drone attack on the southern port city of Odessa were laid to rest on Tuesday. 12 people, including 5 children, were killed in the weekend drone strike that hit a multi-story building. Dozens showed up to pay their respects to the family.
The Ukrainian Prosecutor General and his team are working to record and prosecute over 123,000 war crimes as part of Russia's full-scale invasion of their country. So far, 81 Russians have been convicted. The plan is one day justice will be served to all those responsible, in particular Vladimir Putin. It was after the liberation of Bucha in late March 22 that Ukraine first discovered the brutal character of Russia's war. Summary executions, torture, rape, kidnapping of children.
What we understood after Kharkiv region was liberated in September 2022. We see, and all the world saw, the mass graves in Izium, and the same types of crimes committed in each and every village and town of liberated Kharkiv region. And when we provide forensic researches, we understood that these war crimes were committed not only in March of 2022, the same time they have been committed in Bucha, but in April, May, June, July. So Russians who also saw what they did in Bucha, they proceed to commit the same crimes in the other parts of occupied Ukraine. And we also understood, and we have evidence, that it's another units. So Bucha is not about some war, some military unit gone crazy. It's about policy, it's about pattern. The same we saw when we liberated Kherson in November, the same types of crimes. So the number of torture chambers we have identified in Kherson and Kharkiv, the number of victims and survivors of sexual violence. In July 2022, when I was appointed Prosecutor General, we have 44 cases, reported cases of sexual violence during the war. Now we are investigating 274.
The other issue I wanted to ask you was the children. 19 to 20,000 children have been abducted.
This is one of the most important tasks of us as a country. Some of them were kidnapped from the children's facilities. Some of them were separated from their parents on infiltration camps. Some of them were taken for these like fake vacations and never returned back to their families. They are putting them at adoption. And this is that this is like erasing of all their history. And this is the most brutal.
Do you think you'll see Putin in The Hague?
I believe that our case will be prepared. And when time comes, when and if Putin will be available, he will be prosecuted and tried by the International Criminal Court or by special tribunal.
Okay, Prosecutor General, thank you very much for joining us on Euronews.
Thank you.
Voters in 16 U.S. states and 1 U.S. territory have chosen the presidential candidates in primaries on the country's traditional Super Tuesday. The vote saw big wins for President Joe Biden from the Democratic Party and Republican former President Donald Trump. Tuesday's vote was an indication that a potential rematch between the two candidates in the November elections is looming. They both won the primaries in Massachusetts, Maine, Tennessee, Alabama, and Texas. Biden won Democratic nominating contests in 15 states and Trump in 12 Republican contests. Republican candidate Nikki Haley won the Republican primary in Vermont.
For Nikki Haley, the former governor here in South Carolina, there was just the one surprise win this Super Tuesday in the state of Vermont. But no victory speech, though her campaign said staff were jubilant. There were no public remarks from her here in Charleston, while Donald Trump rightly declared victory. There was no mention whatsoever of Nikki Haley and Donald Trump's speech in Florida. He's moved on from these primaries, and so has President Joe Biden. Both men now firmly pivoting to the general election, the repeat of the duel in 2020. Trump has firmly cemented his role as the leader of the Republican Party on this Super Tuesday. He's not yet the presumptive nominee, but that could happen within a week. And the same goes for Joe Biden. 8 months of campaigning now await us here in the United States. And Joe Biden will have his work cut out, because recent polling shows that Donald Trump can win in November. Philip Crowther, Euronews in Charleston, South Carolina.
White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby says the U.S. and Jordan have carried out another humanitarian airdrop over the northern Gaza Strip. They dropped 36,800 meals. Turkish President Erdogan warned against possible moves to restrict Muslim worshippers from entering holy sites in Jerusalem.
Radikal İsrailli siyasetçilerin Müslümanların Harem-i Şerif'e girişinin kısıtlanması yönündeki talepleri tam anlamıyla bir hezeyandır. Böyle bir adım atılmasının sonuçları şüphesiz çok ağır olacaktır.
French forces have also dropped aid over the Gaza Strip in coordination with Jordanian, Egyptian, and Emirati armed forces. Humanitarian agencies say they can no longer distribute food aid in northern Gaza due to the collapse of law and order in the region.
Shops in Bilbao have installed artwork representing the faces of Gazan children. The artwork is primarily made up of hammered glass. Its aim is to grab the attention of passers-by, reminding them of victims of the Israel-Hamas war.
Más de 30.000 muertos en Palestina. Contra ese genocidio pues teníamos que poner nuestro granito de arena y de una manera además diferente, artística, visual.
300 pairs of shoes scattered along the street are also there to remind us of children who walk in the rubble of war and those in Gaza who will never walk again. Produce more, better, together and in Europe. That's the aim of the first industrial defence strategy proposed by the European Commission on Tuesday. The aim is to provide a long-term vision to develop military capabilities as quickly as possible and to move away from emergency responses in the face of conflict. Some of the main points of the strategy include joint equipment purchases between member states to reduce costs and to harmonise defence equipment and systems.
We propose to achieve the goal by 2030 to procure 40% of equipment in a collaborative manner and to procure 50% of equipment within the European Union.
The Commission is also proposing a €1.5 billion fund for the defence industry to be dispersed over 2 years. It will ease the access to finance for small and medium-sized companies involved in the development of military equipment. It also provides a framework for launching joint defence projects or responding to future supply crises. The Commission wants the EU to be able to react to conflict, but some say the Commission needs to slow down.
Clairement, si la question est, sommes-nous dans une économie de guerre avec ce programme, avec cette stratégie? Clairement, non, nous n'y sommes pas encore. Mais c'est un premier pas qui est nécessaire pour, je dirais, amener tout doucement les États à se rendre compte qu'une démarche européenne en la matière est nécessaire, voire même indispensable.
The first step appears to be less ambitious financially than discussions have suggested in recent months. To free up additional resources, the Commission is not ruling out the possibility of using windfall profits from frozen Russian assets to finance the Union's defence industrial capabilities. But this would require the unanimous agreement of all 27 member states.
The fight against gender inequality is crucial to combating food insecurity and the climate crisis, says the latest report from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. It said that the problem with climate change is it's not stopping, but accelerating, and that women are the most affected.
If we had another 1 degree Celsius change in the climate, it means that over time women would lose 34% more of income than men in situations in middle and low income countries where there's already a lot of stress on these households to produce enough income to feed their families and to pursue their livelihoods.
According to the study, women play a vital role in the agri-food systems as farmers, retailers, wage laborers, entrepreneurs, and more. But that discriminatory gender norms and policies limit their access to land, finance, and technology, or in other words, their resilience to climate change.